I'm going to tie a hot wire hair, and I'm starting off with a size 12 scud hook in the vise, and I've got a 3/32 tungsten bead, and the thread that I'm going to use is an 8/0 red, but first I'm going to add some additional weight to it, so I'm just going to take maybe 10 wraps or so of my lead, and just break off the end, and I'll push that into the bead head to help seat that. And now I can start my thread just behind the lead. I'll take a couple of wraps, I'll wrap up to the bead and then back down, and I can just trim off this excess. And just one more pass up and down to make sure that the lead is in secure. Now I can add in my tail, and for that I've got a rabbit here, and I'm just going to use these tip sections, so I'll pull them up at a 90 degrees angle and then clip them, and that'll make up my tail. And again, the nice thing about this is that you get a lot per hide, and it comes in different color patterns depending on what side of the hide you pull out of. So I've got my clump, and I always take more than I think I'll need, so I can really start to whittle this down, pull out the clumps, and if there's any long hairs, weed those out as well. And when I'm happy with my selection, then I'll just hold this on the back and tie it in. Just right on top and right down the bend in the hook. And then I'll bring my thread back up to just behind the lead there again. So now I can tie in my rib, or my body material, and for that I'm going to use two different colors of brassy ultra wire, one in copper and one in red. And I've cut off a section of each that might be 3 or 4 inches long, and I'll just align the ends and tie this in. And I'm just placing it right on top and tying it into the back. Down to the tail. And now anytime I wrap wire bodies, I really take the extra time to smooth out everything underneath, because any kind of mistakes that you have or high spots will be magnified while you wrap the wire forward. So I just take a little extra time just to get a nice finished body underneath. It may take a little bit longer to do, but I think it makes for a better result. So when I'm happy with that, then I'll just leave my thread up here at the behind the bead, and I can start to take these wraps through. So I'll wrap these in together, and I'm just going to make my turn. And the first wrap, just to get it going, is often the hardest. And if they start to separate, you can just use your nail and push them down. And now I just want to make nice even wraps, making sure that the color is alternating all the way up. Making sure they're nice and tight. Again, another trick, if you get to the top, you can help push them back that way if they start to separate a little bit. So I'll wrap this up, and I always take it a little bit further than where I intend it to stop, just to make sure I have a nice transition. So I'll just take a couple of wraps here on top and in front, and then I can just break these off by giving them a little helicopter. Save my scissors. And now I can start to add my flash and my backing. And so the back that I'm going to use is a mottled oak thin skin. And so I'll first tie that in. I cut it to maybe a 1/4 inch section or so. I'm just going to place that right on top. and make my wraps. And now I'm also going to put a piece of pearl tinsel underneath this. And when you do kind of a flashback, you can tie it in on top or tie it in underneath. I'm tying it underneath. It's a little more subtle of a flashback, but you'll be able to see it'll come through. It comes through a little bit of that thin skin. So I'll tie those both in. Now I'm going to just wax my thread here. And I'll take out my hare's mask. And now I'm just going to take a section off to dub the thorax. So I'll just get that right on the thread. And then I can just start to work this through. And then I can pull all of this up. So first the pearl tinsel, and then you can see how that comes through just a little bit underneath that thin skin. Again, if you want it to be flashier, you can do the tinsel on top. I'll pull everything back, and I use the thread the red thread because it matches, but also it'll give it a hot spot. Just come back through and trim up the excess and finish building this out. And whip finish. And trim the excess thread. And now this is already pretty buggy, but I'll just come back through and pick this a little bit just to really get it leggy. And then I take some Loon's Hardhead Clear and create just a little bump on the back of this. So I'll take it right over my thin skin, and it looks a little bit higher than what it'll be now. That'll settle a little bit, but it gives it just that nice little extra bit there on the back, and it'll help lock in the threads. So that's it. A nice little variation on either a hare's ear or a hot wire, depending on where you want to start from. But that is my hot wire hare.